Morning, can you hear me?
Yes, Al, we can hear you.
Are we going to go with cameras on or cameras off?
So all the speakers will keep their cameras on and I'll keep my camera off.
Okay. On the screen, do you see what I see from the Zoom interface?
Yes,
Okay, so let's try this then.
sure.
How about, oh, you still see it?
No,
I
I
don't-
cannot see your background now.
Okay, so you can still see the slides, but you can't see my camera?
Yes.
What about now? Can you see my camera? Like, can you see my face on your screen?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay.
I think you've moved to the minimized screen because we can see the other, the menu tab and all of that as well.
Yeah, I see that on a full screen as well.
Yeah, now it is not visible.
Oh, okay.
I think this setting would work.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Hi, Al.
Morning,
Good morning. How are you?
afternoon for you, I guess.
Yes.
Coming to you from the lovely Embassy Suites in downtown Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, great. This time IBM Think is in Orlando. So I'll be there on the 9th of May. I'm coming to Orlando.
Is that the Think event?
Yeah, it's a Think event. 9, 10, 11, 12 May.
Yeah, I gotta find out. I got an invite from a client technical professional and I gotta respond to him.
I have to register. I just got the link, but I have to check with IBM for the passes. They're charging for $1,900.
Yeah,
So Priyanka, we are joined as a panelist. I think then how to convert it to attendees? I have to drop or you're just going to convert?
So Sachin, what I'll be doing is I have, as I'm the host, I have all the rights to do it. So I can change you to attendee. If you want me to do it right away, I can do that as well.
No. We'll just do it afterwards. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, I'll do it post 4:30 once we go live.
Exactly. Me, Alam, and then the guys.
Hi, Derek.
Yeah.
Hi, Derek. Good evening.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Good early morning to Al, and for you, it's good morning. Yes.
Yeah. So fun enough, I'm actually at the moment, I'm in a meeting room in Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah.
We've got the hackathon. So Al, I'm here with Chris Hagan and Stuart Walker as well.
they're in the room with you or they're just at the event?
No, they're at the event. They're actually doing a presentation at the moment on RITs and RTAS.
Okay.
So yeah, there's going to be some interesting discussions here over the next few months.
Yep.
We'll keep
Just
them
to
all
give
busy.
you a heads up, sorry to interrupt you, Derek. Just to give you a heads up, we have started getting attendees as well.
Excellent. That's good to know.
I would like to know at the end what our total attendee count is and what our steady state rate is, please, for results. How many registrations, confirmations did we end up getting? I saw yesterday was 175 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes, just give me a minute. I'll get my operations team to answer this.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And so the final yes that we had by today morning was 275.
275 registered.
27, yes. So basically we have 300 plus registrations, and the final confirmation that they are going to join the session today, we had 175 by 12
Right.
o'clock. And the team was still doing it, so I'm sure the number is, going to
Okay.
be, above that, hoping for everyone who have said yes to join.
Yeah.
So we already have 10 attendees.
Okay.
Uh,
So after the call, I'd like to stay on for 10 minutes just to get some stats on attendee levels and such, and just a retrospective on the event, if we could.
Sure, definitely. We're definitely going to do that. So, in fact, we have been sending the daily reports every day. So that's what we're going to send from tomorrow onwards till we finish the post-event calling. So that includes the final registration report that you will receive right after the webinar today.
Okay.
So like we said, Al, then, so well, obviously the intros are being done by Tensor. Then I'll touch on the agenda,
Yeah.
as you say, cover the first page briefly, just literally as a sort of a 30-seconder.
Yeah.
Where we talk about it, we'll happily share those details with you.
Good
Uh,
evening, attendees. Thank you for joining us before time, and we appreciate your presence and time that you have put in. Just give us 10 minutes. We'll start sharp at 4:30, respecting everyone's time, and we'll conclude at 5:30 as well.
So Derek, I can't see anything else other than the presentation. I'm running in full screen mode.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. I've got the Q&A open in front of me as well.
Okay.
And I can see one colleague has one of the attendees has put their hand up. Oh, no, the hand's gone back down.
All right. They're just testing out the UI. So are you going to give me a lead in kind of thing? Al, one of the things we were talking about is value streams are everywhere. Is that how we're going to kick this off?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
And actually, ironically, the conversation I was having earlier this morning was all about value streams as well.
ये हमारे यहाँ पे दोनों का वीडियो, प्रियंका को भी दोनों को
Penn side team, what's our attendee levels right now?
I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
What's our attendee levels right now?
Attendee is 26.
Okay. And as we get started, the audio is okay and the video is okay?
Yes.
Yep, I can hear you, Al. I can see you. Hope you can hear and see me as well.
I can't see anything. I'm in full screen mode, so it
Of
blocks
course. Yes.
all things. You see the Zoom interface now on the screen?
I've got it, Al. Yes, I can't see yours. So say we have 33 attendees. I've got the
Okay.
Q&A open as well. 34.
Yeah, I've got the interface up so I can see your face and my pretty face.
I can only apologize for that one, Al.
Yeah. We're born the way we're born.
I can see as we approach the hour, a few more joining, which is good to see.
They were at the top of the hour or bottom of the hour now, so.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for everyone for being with us here today. We are pleased to be able to welcome our esteemed speakers and all attendees for today's webinar on value stream management. Just to add, all attendees can post their questions in the Q&A section and it shall be answered post the presentation. Moving right along, now it gives me an immense pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. First speaker, Mr. Al Wagner, who's a solution architect and DevOps enthusiast and an IBM partner. Mr. Al is a software solution architect and DevOps enthusiast with more than 25 years of practical field experience in a variety of development roles, driving thought leadership, strategic initiatives, and tangible solutions around DevOps, focusing primarily on value stream management, continuous delivery, and continuous testing. Our second speaker for today, Mr. Derek Newton, who's a general manager for the EMEA region, London, UK, Datamato. Derek Newton has recently joined Datamato after spending 25 plus years in IBM's technology business, covering all aspects of software and system delivery lifecycle, having also spent time within information management, Rational, and within IBM's global DevOps team. In addition, he has also significant experience in IBM's multiple license model, including their unique token offerings, FlexPoints, and Cloud Paks. And now I would like to hand over for the presentation to Mr. Al. Al, over to you.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. Derek, why don't you kick us off here and get us started in this discussion?
Yes, no, thank you, Al, and hello everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. So what we're going to cover through the agenda is we're going to talk about a number of areas, but most specifically we're going to talk about value streams, value stream management, and also how the technology that we have can make that more accessible to the organisation as a whole. And also I think what's very important is we're going to talk about the business value that you can attain from adopting this sort of approach. We would like to see this as an interactive session, so we have the Q&A open, and what we will do is please do raise your questions, and if relevant, we'll answer them through the flow, or if not, we'll pick them up at the end. What I would say, if we move to the next slide very quickly there for me, please, Al, is this is almost like a stage 2, if you like, around value stream management. Hopefully a number of you have already watched our earlier webinar that myself and Al put together around value stream management. If you haven't, please do take the time to watch that as well. It will certainly give you a lot more value around value stream management overall. I'm very conscious I've probably already said value stream about 10 times. And Al, as we know, from a lot of our conversations, pretty much value streams are everywhere. I mean, certainly only this morning on a conversation I had, half the conversation was about value streams. So look, Al, maybe I could hand over to you, because you touch these every single day. So from your perspective, help me out, help the audience.
Yeah, so my background is in the development space and looking at the delivery pipeline. But as I got more and more into the topic of value stream management, it became very clear to me that everything is a value stream. Everything has a trigger, some initiative or some action that goes through a series of steps to some outcome, some desired objective. If I look across the world at all these different other types of value streams that are out there beyond just the DevOps space, order processing. So if we consider something like Amazon, the customer goes to the website, they browse an item, they put it in their shopping cart. That's the trigger. What are all the steps that order has to go through until that customer gets the desired outcome, the package delivered to their door? So a lot of these value streams are operational in nature, meaning that to be in business, the business has to provide this value stream. But then another example is Amazon Prime. That is a delivered value stream where customers are willing to pay to shorten that journey to value. So Amazon has taken that operational order to cash type of process, sold a service on top of it to shorten that journey to value, which then delivers business results. And if we look at it, from a business organization, I want to start to understand what are these value streams that I'm managing. And we drill down into, it's big. The scope of value stream management is huge. So what I'm seeing lately is, as teams are still on the DevOps trend and focusing on taking ideas and turning them into working products or services or software to delight their customers, we seem to focus on the engineering value streams. And even within those value streams, we see kind of a development value stream and an operations value stream. Yes, we are, breaking down those silos, but even within those value streams are micro level value streams. There's a planning component and a development and deploy component and a test component and a security component. And then there's the infrastructure component and approvals and event management and all of these things are taking us to a world of lean and agile and DevOps plus value stream management is getting us to a place where businesses are able to focus on outcomes and start to measure what is the contribution of the improvements from software. And when we start looking at a value stream and trying to eliminate waste, because some of those process steps could be manual, maybe there's a piece of software that we can build or an integration or an appliance that we can put into that value stream that would shorten that journey to value. So software is really optimizing the world as we're on this journey of delivering value to our clients.
Yeah, and of course we've talked about this many times, haven't we? And I think it's good that you've highlighted that a lot of this also is about understanding the waste within the process. an
And
understanding
the
of.
one thing yeah, the one thing I'd like to call out is value stream management is not a replacement for lean, agile, or DevOps.
No, of course not.
It's-
It's
yeah.
an application, isn't it?
It's another method or process or ways of looking at things that can complement DevOps initiatives. And we can get into that. I think we're going to touch on that a little bit later in the conversation.
So obviously that's touching on the value stream itself. And I think, as we know, it's a lot of organizations recognize the importance, for example, maybe moving from a product approach or a capability approach actually to a value stream, which gives a good way of bridging, as you say, that gap between the business, the consumer, the customer, the clients, and of course the development community as a whole. So that's from a value stream perspective, but I suppose what we're going to be covering today is around sort of value stream management as a whole. So I'm guessing, how would we sort of look to define that and help the audience understand that in a bit more detail?
Okay, well, let's start to go down this path. So we all have been working in software for a long time, software delivery. We've tried different methodologies, different approaches, different practices to try to, again, that value stream, take that idea, that trigger, and deliver something into production that the customer is going to get value from. And we've kind of been on a journey, and I like to break it down this way. There was the agile movement and looking at lean practices around how do we become more efficient in turning that idea into working software that's ready for delivery. And that's really the creative side of the pipeline, right? Because every team, every product team is going to be different in the complexity of the applications they're building, the scope of the changes within a particular sprint or a particular release. There's just not everybody is built the same on that creative side of the equation. But then along came DevOps, and we moved to being able to wanting to measure, right? We wanted to know how long it took from a code commit until that committed code was built and deployed and tested and released into production. And that became a very repetitive side of the pipeline. So we look at this as DevOps day one, where we focused on automating that pipeline from commit until it's into production. And then we started measuring things like cycle time. How long does that process take? What is our mean time to recovery? How fast can we recover from something that goes wrong? What is our deployment frequency rate? What is our deployment success rates? You're going to hear those kind of the DORA 4. You're using flow metrics, flow velocity. They're all really looking at that repetitive side of the pipeline. So
Well, I suppose
go ahead.
And one of the observations there, of course, Alan, we've spoken about this a number of times, is the challenge is these metrics are great, but actually without necessarily full context, they're not as meaningful as they could be. And of course, there are times when they can also drive bad behavior.
Well, yeah, you're getting into a concept of vanity metrics, right? Yes, we can deploy something faster. And this is where these value streams start to integrate to one another. If my delivery team is working really quickly and I can, turn that idea into working software and get it into production, great. And if I can do that super fast and measure how quickly I do it, but if my marketing team is not aligned and my sales team is not aligned, or another value stream another team is not aligned, if nobody knows about it and nobody's selling it, where's the value to the business? And that's where we're going here, is taking all the great things that the delivery teams are doing, but turning it back into what are the objectives and the key results the business is looking for. And we need to be able to link that improvement, because there is so much spend across the teams. And I hear this more and more when I talk to the executive level. They are asking themselves, I spent $1 million on this initiative within this particular area of my business. What did I get out of it? We need to be able to start tying that back to say, yes, Mr. Boss, you gave us this money and this is the value we delivered back to you. And that has been something we're chasing right now. And that's really where the value stream management comes into play, because we're not only looking at that repetitive side of the pipeline or the creative, we're looking across the entire pipeline and measuring from that time that idea shows up. And that idea is really coming from the customer in a form of feedback. we would like to see this enhancement.
Mm, mm.
We would like to see this performance improvement. We would like to see this new product. And then you link those to your business objectives. What are we trying to achieve as a business? Grow revenue by 10% over the next 6 months or a quarter or whatever. That's
Yeah.
what we're tying ourselves back to.
And also, of course, like you highlighted, is this a lot of the time it's actually the customer demand. So you know, ultimately, the business wants to drive more sales or they want to acquire more customers. And there's been that disconnect. And certainly, I think when we've spoken about this a number of times, like the execs that we speak to, is actually, I want to make sure that every piece of work done is of value to the organization, and more importantly, value to the customers that drive the revenue that keeps the organization afloat.
When you have a holistic view of data from both a business and a technical point of view, you can make better decisions on where you're going to invest, aligned to what your customers are asking for. Because we're all, if we don't have customers and they're not willing to spend money with us, we don't really have a business.
That's very
Then
fair.
we have a need for a delivery team.
And like you
So,
hinted,
go ahead.
so like you hinted, some of this comes from Six Sigma and Lean, and it's all about that voice of the customer and making sure that we all understand why we're doing what we are doing.
Right. And that's what we're trying to achieve here as we're getting into this DevOps day 2. Capture these software delivered KPIs, link them back to the business objectives, figure out how we can scale best practices across the organization by looking at some of the KPIs from certain teams, extracting best practices and replicating those practices across other teams to help them improve. It's all about optimization to achieve the desired business outcomes. We can see the visualization of workflow and the shift left type of tech ideas and, improving the release process, but it's all coming back to business, customer value realized as business objectives.
And I suppose the real challenge here, and let's be honest, right? We certainly we recognize the importance of this, but actually a lot of organizations do see it as well, but they're not adopting this approach. Or I imagine a number of people on this call are thinking, I like the very high level, but actually my concern is, how do we adopt this? What are we seeing from customers that challenge?
Right. So I belong to an organization called the Value Stream Management Consortium, which is a group of vendors and value stream management leaders across the industry that are talking about this every week.
Mm-hmm.
And, in 2021, the Value Stream Management Consortium ran a survey on the state of value stream management. And, I found the chart on the left to be very telling. We don't know what it is. Well, a couple of years ago, value stream management was very new. We can't get sponsorship. Well, we didn't perhaps educate the executive teams more on what is the art of the possible with respect to embracing value stream management. We can't get aligned. We don't know how. It takes too much time. So that to me is kind of an enablement problem, or helping them, services offerings or whatever, to help people get to that place of mapping. And mapping is a very important step. But now, as we look at the state of value stream management in 2022, we can't get executive sponsorship. We don't have anyone to lead the effort. We lack the resources to do this. We have too much other stuff on our plate. And I have a link down at the bottom. If you're not part of the consortium or you're not following it, you may want to check it out, because there's a lot of really good information there.
Well, I'd absolutely recommend that. I mean, and I've known Helen Beale from many years ago, and it's fantastic work that you and the VSM consortium as a whole are doing. So no, I would strongly recommend anyone on this call to take the time to have a look at this.
Right, and so the 2022 report is telling me that people kind of get what it is now. They've maybe gone through a mapping exercise, and it's there's still some issues there, and we're going to talk to those. But this one here is, I believe, the executives, we don't have enough people. This is not a focus area for us. It's not part of our strategy or our vision. And I think this is coming back to the sponsors don't see the return. again, they're still struggling with, I'm giving you all this money, but you're unable to tell me what is the value. So why should I give you more money or more time or more resources to do this if you can't demonstrate or show me what I'm going to get back? So we're kind of, in my opinion, we're at a place where we have to do a better job evangelizing. We have to do a better job leading and enabling, and we have to do a better job of communicating and sharing the ROI from these types of initiatives so that the executives will look at it and go, yeah, this is important to me. And hopefully, as part of this conversation, we'll expose some of that value and that art of that possible that can help change some of these larger percentages where I don't have the resources, I don't have the time, I can't get sponsorship. That's kind of my mission here, is to let's get people talking about it. I was at the DevOps Enterprise Summit last year, and Dean Leffingwell from the SAFE organization said on the stage was value stream management was one of the most overused terms he had heard at the DevOps conference, which isn't a bad thing because people are finally talking about it.
Yep, that was very fair.
So if we look at it, how do we get people started? And this is again a implementation roadmap back from the consortium. I can't stress this enough. We often jump into things, we try things, but we don't understand what our vision is, what our strategy is, or what our mission is. What are our objectives and the key results? Covey's begin with the end in mind. Let's try to figure out what we want to accomplish before we just jump into doing something. And that's really important here, is to set up this vision. When we set up these visions, whether we're going to be organized by product or project, I would suggest we organize by product and offering a service, something that the customer purchases, that there's a value stream underneath it. Let's identify those. And then in a mapping exercise, you're going to bring all these people into this room. So that, I think, is some of the inhibitors is, okay, I am slammed. I've got all this work to get done. You're going to take me away from my work for a day so that we can collectively get in a room and discuss what the end-to-end process is. I know what my job is. Why should I give up 2 days of work to help map this? And that's one of the challenges, because the mapping side of the equation is, and we talked about this in the previous webinar, we're going to look at our end-to-end process. We're going to identify some areas of waste. We're going to prioritize certain experiments that we're going to implement to remove that waste. And we do that, well, then we have to reconvene and go through a mapping exercise again to figure out, where did the bottleneck move to? There's always a constraint, Goldratt's theory of constraints, right? There's a constraint in every pipeline, and it moves. You fix it, it's going to move someplace else. So you have to find it. And that's what the mapping is finding these constraints, finding the waste, and then identifying and prioritizing experiments to exploit that constraint and implement something that's going to work. Now, after that, the mapping exercise, now we start connecting to these sources of truth, like my planning tool, perhaps Jira, like my version control system, a version of Git, like my CI process, my continuous delivery process, my continuous testing process. All of this has data. Problem is, it's distributed in 6 or 7 different repositories, where trying to bring that data all together is waste unto itself. I have to go to 6 or 7 different spots to find what I'm looking for. So when we make that leap from mapping to management, we're connecting to those sources of truth and bringing them into a centralized control plane, or a single control plane, where I have visibility into all of these different pipeline tools. And from there, I get to inspect and change, and inspect and change. And that really moves us into a world of continuous, right? We get access to that data in almost real time as work is moving through that pipeline.
Let's be honest, I mean, yeah, if we had a time machine and we went back 20 or 30 years, it's the same with Agile. It was the same with DevOps. It's now the same with VSM. And I think, like you've highlighted, what I like about this chart is a lot of this is about the changing of the culture, and we all know this. You know, it's a cultural change as much as a business change as much as it is a tool change. And like you've highlighted here, which I think is very important, is it's an organizational approach to the way that you do things. And I think as we know, I've joked many times, I haven't got enough time to go and find the fire extinguisher because I'm trying to put this fire out. It's almost that kind of analogy. And certainly once you start to do this, and I think probably one of the places that you've highlighted is, well, almost like step number one is once you've got the recognition that you want to take this approach, how do you actually map a value stream?
Right. So there's a lot of different opinions. This is my approach to this because I'm trying to find the waste quickly and then dive deeper into a particular area of my pipeline. So if you remember at the start, I said there was the engineering pipeline and then there was the micro pipelines or value streams underneath it. So as I go through something like this, I'm going to, and this would be a mapping exercise I may run with a client organization, is let's understand what our objectives we're trying to achieve. Let's understand how you're collecting information from your customer. What's that feedback loop? Because the faster we can get that product or that idea through the information flow pipeline or the product flow, the faster we're getting feedback. Sounds a lot like the guiding principles of DevOps. And the continuous experiments and the changes we implement and learn as that idea is going through the pipeline is that the third guiding principle. So we're starting to find that. Where are the things that are slowing us down in that information flow or product flow that we can maybe make a change or an improvement or define an experiment we want to implement in that section, and then measure. But it's like performance testing, you don't just start tweaking systems without understanding what your baseline is. So we've got to figure out what our baseline is. So as I look across this, let's kind of go through a mock here. So when idea comes in, what are the things, what are the activities, what are the artifacts that you are doing in your planning phase? What kind of methodology are you using? What is the actual time you're taking to do that particular task? And then start looking at, okay, but within that, say 1 day of cycle time, we spend 1 day in planning. I have at least one meeting a day. Well, that's non-value add to this exercise, unless that meeting is about this exercise. But there's interruptions, right? So, it's very difficult to track that waste, but it is absolutely waste. So I start to do things like, okay, what is my contribution value add versus non-value add? And then what is my efficiency level for that particular stage? And I do the same for design. What are the things you're doing? What are the artifacts? And some of these artifacts, you question, well, why are you building those? And then you'll hear from the development team or the testing team or the release engineers, yeah, why are you building those? We never read them anyways.
It's the way we've always done it, is, as we know, is probably one of the most phrases, yeah.
So that's the source of waste. So then I start looking at, okay, it's 2 days to design this, and of that, we've got a process efficiency of, say, 70%. Then we've got development time. So let's say we got five days here on cycle time. What are the different tasks that are running? And you question all of these tasks. Why am I doing this? What is the value I'm generating from it? Who uses it downstream? And if they don't use it, or you don't need to do it, then that's another item of waste that you can eliminate. Look at deploy and test. Even though everybody says we're doing DevOps, or we're agile, it's very much Scrum Fall. It's still, throw it over the fence to the test team for user acceptance testing or whatever, or it's heavy manual test activities. But we're going to call all that out, and we're finally putting it on a board for everybody to see, and they're going, oh, this is where we could improve. And, you know, I often see the continuous delivery, provisioning of test environments, the execution of tests is a real time sink in a pipeline for many organizations. Not everybody, some have really knocked this one out of the water, right? As far, or out of the ballpark with respect to addressing this. But so these are just samples, but, you know, here I look at 10 days of value add, 24 days of wait. Where I'm waiting for something to happen, gives me a process efficiency of 30%. You know, my release is pretty good. And then when I start adding up the manual cues along the way, like between planning and design, there's a delay of 2 days. And from design to development, there's a delay of 2 days and 5 days and 1 day. Then I can calculate what my actual lead time is. A quarterly release. So as a business, we want to reduce our release cycle from quarterly to monthly over the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Right? It's specific target, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time-based. Now we're getting into SMART objectives and key results that we're going to start making decisions against. So this really helps me, and now I'm going to prioritize, and finally, I'm going to say, okay, test is my bottleneck. Let's go look deeper into what's going on in the test process and kind of look at, you know, what is my infrastructure provisioning delays? Is it, you know, I have to send an email to the infrastructure team for them to provision the test environment. And then the infrastructure team sends an email to the release engineer to say, okay, now it's ready, you can deploy it. The release engineer does the deployment and then sends it back to the test manager to say, okay, now it's ready. You know, those are the kinds of discussions we have to understand how that work flows from idea to outcome.
And also, of course, let's be honest, this will be a separate topic for another time, but how many people are always using test environments? Why not simulate some of those environments? But as we know, that's another conversation that could reduce cycle time.
Absolutely.
So that's from a mapping perspective. I'm conscious that we're talking about mapping. Help me with the difference between value stream mapping and value stream management.
Okay, so if we remember back to the roadmap, we had the start, create your vision, organize, and start to do the mapping exercise. But this mapping exercise is very opinion driven. It's coming out of the people's minds. It's, you know, coming together in a room and Post-its on a wall.
Who shouts loudest? Yeah.
Pardon me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where value stream management is, remember I said, after that mapping point, we start connecting to our sources of truth. We start leveraging data. We start to do inspection and adaption and constantly measuring improvement. So we're moving to a more scientific, a tool-centric, data-driven model, removing the perceptions or the beliefs or the misbeliefs or the you know, all the stuff, the human side of we're making it more concrete. And that's really the transition. And I think that is where we need to get to, because if we look back to the state of value stream management report for 2022, there was the, you know, we can't get the resources, we can't get this, we can't get that, because people have tried mapping. And again, it is a valuable topic, but I don't, you know, they're also seeing the time lost as people are in a room every quarter or month doing this value stream mapping exercise. So do your mapping exercise, get your benchmarks, and then move to management where you can measure improvements from that mapping point in time.
Yeah, I think you've hit a really fair point there. I mean, again, we've discussed this many times. This is about adding context as well. And I think that's a really important point. I mean, you've heard the phrase I've used many times, is an ill-informed reckon, which is incredibly dangerous. The beauty here is you're now starting to add facts. And like you've mentioned it many couple of times, experiments, a hypothesis. Actually, we think this is the problem, but is it? And then we can find out and identify the problem.
Right, that's the beauty of the continuous learning, right? Not all of these experiments are going to pass. but there's value in a failed experiment because you just learned a way not to do something.
And as I reminded you before, this is where WD-40 came from. If anybody wants
Right.
to Google WD-40, you know, great water disbursement, 40th recipe. Failed many times, but look how successful now.
So, you know, the big shift for me from mapping to management is this continuous inspection and adaptation, the iteration. It's really that continuous improvement and measure. If you don't measure, you don't know whether it was a positive improvement and you've just failed faster, or and you need to communicate back to the executive team that, okay, we did this was the level of improvement. It's baby steps.
This is why you
right?
need. This is why you made that investment.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's, as you say, it's tying it back to the business value. And as we know, you know, software has become so important to every organization, and that ability to respond to change is absolutely critical, because that's what gives you the business agility. And as we know, you can look at many organizations that didn't respond fast enough. The one I always think of is Kodak, for example.
Yeah. Where are they now?
Yeah.
Right. So let's spin this over to a little bit of what's out there to help. And as we were introduced, you know, Datamato is an IBM business partner. I'm a business partner with IBM, and IBM has a product called Velocity. And this is their value stream management platform that starts to give us that connection to sources of truth, the visualization of data, so that we can continuously inspect and adapt and change and measure. And within Velocity, there's in excess of 40 plus integrations to the various tools that organizations typically use in their pipeline, like Jira, like Azure, like Team Foundation Server, like Bitbucket, like IBM DevOps Automation Deploy, testing, JUnit, Jenkins, the list goes on. And I don't have all of the icons of the different toolings, but
Wouldn't
what
fit them all
that
on one
does,
page, Al.
pardon me?
You wouldn't fit them all on one page.
Yeah. So the way this works is Velocity connects through these plugins to these various sources of truth or systems of record. And these integrations understand the data format of all these different tools, and through this automated synchronization, extracts that data or copies the data or synchronizes data from, it doesn't copy or move, it synchronizes data from the source of truth, normalizes it, and stores it in a Mongo repository that then allows us to visualize that data in many forms, in a value stream view that we'll talk more about, in a pipeline orchestration view that gives me an inventory of what version of my application associated to this value stream is in a particular environment. You know, release management capabilities. I can schedule, I can build automated governance into standardized release templates. And then the last part is the insights. How can I see these improvements over time? Am I trending in a positive way? Am I trending in a negative way? What team may be excelling in one of the practice areas that I can, and the charts, the insights view will tell me, and maybe I can extract the best practices from that team and replicate it across other teams to achieve my goal of optimizing my entire organization.
Yeah, and actually, and I think one really important point here is, and you know, again, I say this from my 25 years of working at IBM, and funny enough, remembering Rational Team Concert, IBM traditionally have been very much, you know, use our tools. And I think the beauty of the approach that we're seeing, and now I think you'd agree with me, you've seen this change over a good few years, is we now recognize, or IBM, I can't say anymore because I'm Datamato, but the beauty is that you look at the existing tools in place and you augment that investment. This is not rip and replace. This is adding value to what you've already got and giving it context to help you deliver more.
Right, and the mapping exercise may expose a gap. in that pipeline, which may say you potentially want to look at some technology here, or the technology you have in place just isn't meeting your needs.
Or is a
So-
process broken?
Right.
Maybe
And
improve the process.
Well, it could be a process issue as well. Exactly. But that's what, looking across the entire pipeline, the value that brings, right? Because you're bringing, data from my planning tool and my testing tools and my delivery tools and all that stuff into one interface that looks kind of something like this, helps me understand, how am I progressing? So, some people may be overwhelmed by this view, but let me just highlight some of the key areas. So in that planning phase on the left-hand side, that's basically pulling back data from my Jira instance or from my change management system where I've got some issue in production that I have to resolve. Those are the work items, the distribution, which ones are stories, which ones are bugs, which ones are tasks. I can see under the selected for development stage within the planning phase, I can start to implement work in progress. So now I can start to look at this and say, oh, okay, 10, our team's mental or cognitive capacity is 10 work items in that selected for development stage. We've already got 10. If I put any more in, I'm going to create an artificial bottleneck because I'm going to overwhelm them. They are starting to worry about more stuff than they need to. Across the top, I can start to see my trends, right? KPIs, my lead time, my cycle time, my build frequency, my deploy frequency. What is the average load on how many work items are active in my team at this particular time? What is my throughput? How many work items have I put through this pipeline from backlog to production in the last 30 days? What is my distribution? And then from a prescriptive point of view, Velocity runs business algorithms against the data lake every 24 hours and will tell you where there's an area you may want to look at, such as selected for development. Now, and it calls it out in that KPI bar. So I look at my selected for development, I see that my work in progress limits is I'm at my clip level, and then I see in progress. Notice the different circle outlines. In progress says that this stage is running slow. Review says this is medium, and the solid circles in blue this is moving fast. Well, I happen to know that bottleneck is a flow imbalance because work is not leaving the in progress stage fast enough so that I am pulling, not pushing, the team is pulling from selected for development. So these are all things that, will help me understand, because now I know where my problem is. My team is slow in progress. The red circles are telling me there's 2 tasks that have exceeded the time of, on average, a work item spends 3 days in that section. Those 2 work actions or work items have been there for longer than 3 days. Why?
Yeah.
And it's not a witch hunt. It's not to penalize an individual. It's to help. It's to lead. It's to guide.
As we know, this view, of course, as we know, is a very high level, and of course we've got a lot of rich hover capability there. Then you start to see the data that relates to this. So this visual alone, I know we're very familiar with this view, and I would say to others, there's so much information here.
There is. And when I talked about all these different sources of truth, the data visualized on this screen, the planning is from a Jira instance. The in progress is from, Git, the commits, the pull requests. The build is coming in from Jenkins. The development deployments are coming in from Urban Code Deploy for dev, QA, and production. And then what's interesting is all of that data for each one of these work items is contained against that work item. So you have a complete audit history of right from the start through to where that particular work item or dot is in a stage. What are all the activities? Who touched it? How long was it there? Because when the auditors come and say, did you make sure, can you confirm to me that all these work items went through the approved process? There was no workarounds, or we move stuff past, the due diligence has been done in order to release it to production? The answer is yes.
And of course, and this is only one view, isn't it? There's multiple views that we could leverage within this tool to help.
Yeah, the other one that we use a lot is the swim lanes view for our daily stand-ups, particularly when COVID hit and everybody moved from the office back to the remote locations. Our stand-ups went to, well, we use this for our daily work anyways, the velocity tooling. But from here, I can see what is my distribution of work across my team. I can look at it by prioritization. I can look at it by work item type. What release is a work item associated to? What sprint is a work item associated to? Or more importantly, from the product owner, right? As a business, one of these hypotheses, we believe that if we implement this feature, we are going to generate this amount of revenue. Well, the work items are experiments to fulfill that hypothesis, right? So then I start looking at, am I going to deliver these work items in time to achieve that business objective? So there's a lot of information here, and you can really help individuals in advancing. It's about finding the bottlenecks, finding the slow points, and providing the guidance or assistance to unblock things.
We're touching on two personas here, but I'm guessing there are other personas that can benefit from there as well, aren't there?
Oh, there's lots. From an agile team, we're moving beyond just the creative side. We're giving the holistic view across, and we're helping to find the waste, eliminate the constraints, and take action, and then measuring. We can start to see the trends on these different metrics, whether we're improving on our KPIs. From a pipeline view, the release engineer, within a value stream, I have multiple applications. I could maybe have 15, 20 microservices or different containers or application components. What version is where, so that when I start moving them across the different environments, I want to make sure that I move what has been tested together into the next environment. So, and I can use gates here, automated governance gates, to ensure that the right level of quality is in place, or the right level of security is in place to help mitigate or eliminate or reduce risk to the business in advancing. So there's a whole approval process and automated smart gates around quality criteria, release managers, scheduling things up. We don't want to have collisions of, well, there's a financial blackout, so we can't release it this time, or the team's not going to be available because they're on training. So we can schedule all of that out, and everybody has access to that type of a view.
Okay.
And then go ahead.
No, it was good. No, carry on.
And then to the question of, the executives will show me how this investment that I continually make in you improve is actually contributing back to my business. So
which is the number one problem, isn't it?
Right. So
Yeah.
where the agile teams view is kind of like the last 30-day view, the insights view for the transformation leaders is over time. Historically, what are the trends? How are we improving? Which is a great segue into, this is the number one challenge that I'm asked about. How are you helping me connect my technical investments to deliver on my business outcomes, and show me that I've invested in the right place to achieve what my mission or my vision or my OKRs are, my objectives and key results. And this is what one of the charts I like to show in Velocity is, it's a mix. I've got business outcomes, things that matter to the executive team, right? Like customer NPS score. So what is my target? How am I trending towards my target? What have I picked up any new customers? I ran a marketing campaign. We just did some new initiative that should be recruiting. Did I generate new customers? Did I reduce the number of shopping carts that were abandoned? Did I hit my weekly sales totals? Or what was my average cart? So those are the business metrics. But then what contributed to that? Well, maybe I improved the level of quality in production because there was an error message because some customers were abandoning the carts because they couldn't figure out how to complete the transaction. Or we deployed a new initiative which really saw a spike in new customer registrations because we've delivered on a feature function that they've been asking for a long time. Now we're starting to have a business conversation.
No, this
You
makes a
know,
lot of sense.
when-
Makes a lot of sense.
When the
So-
when the executive comes to you and says, I gave you $1 million, what did you do with it? Oh, we can deploy, we can deploy every 2 days now instead of 3.
So what?
Exactly,
Yeah.
how is
So
that
how-
helping
so-
my business?
So how do those yeah, we're probably very sensible time to move into the Q&A side of things.
Yeah.
But what do we I mean, one of the things we would recommend is go and have a look at Velocity, isn't it? So there's
Yeah,
a community available.
Yeah, the community edition is a full-featured version of Velocity that is supports 2 concurrent session IDs, meaning you can have 2 concurrent users in without requiring a license. The support for this is community support. So whoever takes a look at this may want to connect to the IBM automation DevOps community
Well,
because
to me and to you as well, of course, Al. We'd be able to help.
yeah, absolutely. But to the URL that I have at the bottom right here, you get access to the bits. You can download it for an initial. You want to try something out. There's 2 different install methods. One is a Docker Compose. It's by far the simplest, but that would only be for a pilot, a POC type of application. If you're going to go into production with it, then I would recommend a Kubernetes environment. But for POCs or just to kick the tires, and there's demo data that can be loaded in through the different plugins. There's many videos out there to help. This is a way that people can get access to the bits without requiring a license for 2 concurrent users.
No, thank you, Al. No, that's very good. And what I would say is, again, I think obviously myself and Al could talk about this forever, but we're very keen to hear from those that are attending. And certainly, what I would say is that we both love this technology. We love the capability and what it can offer you. And we really would like to hear from you now as to what you thought. And by the way, we're more than happy to come and see you and talk about this in a lot more detail. So I don't know if you could open up. We could open up if anyone has any questions. Greatly appreciated.
Is there any QA or anything posted in the chat or QA, Derek?
I'm not seeing anything in the QA or the chat. I don't know if anybody maybe wants to raise their hand.
We must have done too good of a job then.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes. So we haven't received any Q&A yet. I think now the audience needs time to, put their questions in, so we can wait for the questions. So audience, so dear audience, if you have any doubts, we have the experts here. You can put in your questions and we'll get it answered.
The other side is if you post your questions, if we don't happen to get to it, we'll do everything possible to try to respond to them after the webinar.
We've had our
Yes,
first
we will
question.
get you a report for that as well. So now we have the first question. So it is from one of the anonymous attendee. The
Okay.
question is, do you have any community edition of Velocity platform?
That's right here. This is the community edition. So you go to the website, you put in some details to this would give you, filling in this form would give you access to the community edition of the bits, which you could then install in a Docker Compose environment or in a Kubernetes environment and provide access to 2 concurrent users.
Thank you for answering that.
Okay.
So I suppose maybe a question to the audience. How many looking at VSM at the moment, and how many have already started to adopt VSM?
And maybe do just a raise hands.
Yeah, just a raise hand. So the first question is, how many are looking to adopt?
Al and Derek, we have a next question from again
Okay.
an anonymous attendee. That is there any certification related to VSM? How can we obtain it?
Certification to value stream management. I know that the consortium is looking at some of that activity right now as one of our work trends. So I would consider, or I would suggest connecting to the value stream management consortium, checking what's out on the website. And I will certainly take that as a comment back to the VSM consortium leadership that there is interest in value stream management certification. But I'm quite certain that the VSMC has an activity underway right now to build out a certification program.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. I hope attendee, your question was answered.
Okay, we've got another question.
So another question from again an anonymous attendee, that what is the basic skill set required for VSM implementation?
Okay, so the one thing I want to clear up is the value stream management interfaces, those aren't typically the interface that the development team or the developer or the programmer, the tester would work in day to day. They would continue to use the tooling that they have across their pipeline. What the value stream management platforms are doing is pulling data from those delivery tools into a view that would appeal to your team lead, your app dev manager, your product owner, your executive team, your release engineers, your quality manager. The skill set to get into the implementation side for a production instance is Kubernetes. Kubernetes skills are key. The install process is a MongoDB backend in your Kubernetes environment. Then you would set up an Nginx environment, as well as Velocity is deploying through a Helm chart. So it's primarily based on Kubernetes skills and having the right access to the right level of permissions to deploy the application. So that's kind of your skill set, your technical individual with Kubernetes skills to stand it up. From a configuration point of view, like to get those dots going, that may be a value stream management architect. The way that happens is you look at your state models, say in your planning tool, a planning tool like Jira, or the labels you may be using in a GitLab pipeline, or the different state models you may see in Azure. You know, it's looking at how is your process mapped today, and then through a JSON file, you start to build out what phases make up my pipeline, what stages are within each phase. Just let me scroll back to this slide here, so you have some reference. What stages are within each phase, and then within the stage, I write queries against the Mongo repository. Issue.status equals selected for development, and that's what would make the dots appear in the selected for development stage. And you can write very, very complex queries. One of the things I like to do is, as an app dev manager, perhaps I have 3 or 4 value streams reporting to me. Well, I don't really want to go look at 4 different views. I want a consolidated view, and I don't need to see all this level of detail. I want to know what each value stream has in to do, what are they doing, and what is done. So I can create, you know, through these queries in that JSON file, aggregate value streams, which is still presenting the same data, but in a format that's consumable for the persona that's asking for it. So there's a lot of flexibility in how I can set this type of a view up. Hopefully that answered the question. There was a lot of information in that.
Yes, thank you for answering that, Al. So the next question that we have is, what are the competing platforms for Velocity, and how Velocity stack against those?
Value stream. So Forrester and Gartner have released some reports. If you have accounts, you can pull back the relative placements. There's a number of players in this game. There's founding members on the consortium. Task Top has a product, but they were acquired by PlanView. Micro Focus has a product. Atlassian has a product. Digital AI has a product.
Yep.
ServiceNow has a value stream management product. And they're all unique in their own, or they all offer similar capabilities, but maybe represent data differently. So you may want to look at the Value Stream Management Consortium. They have a marketplace page that all the vendors, all the platforms are available on that page, and you can start to look at the different offerings out there and then pick the right one for you. Pick the one that's going to work and solve but I would stress, first figure out what problem are you trying to solve before you go just choosing a particular vendor. You got to understand what the objective is. And that goes right back to the value stream management, right? That question was the trigger. What is the outcome? Well, you got to know what you have in mind before you pick that solution. And Value Stream Management Consortium Marketplace lists all the vendors that are out there.
Yeah, the last competition I would add that people often don't talk about is do nothing. So actually, doing something is important.
Great. Great. So the next question that we have is, how different is value stream management from Six Sigma?
There's I suppose one answer is that we take it's a tricky one, isn't it, Al? Because actually, if you think about it, a lot of the concepts of VSM take from things like Six Sigma and from Lean.
Yeah, there's when I start talking about, compliance with different frameworks, I can map it back, and it's maybe that process flow is what shows up in my value stream so that I can show that I am aligned. Because again, this is, and I'm not a Six Sigma expert, so please don't
Oh, okay. Okay. So the next question that we have, Alan Derrick, is it possible to apply value stream management to electronic manufacturing industry?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
I'm actually now back to almost the original slide. Is VSM can be applied to anything. And actually, I'm in an automotive organization today where absolutely value stream is important. But then again, I've also been speaking to banks, and I've been speaking to multiple organizations. I mean, Al, you can answer that as well.
Yeah, the value stream management, the purpose of this tool is to optimize the process by identifying where there is delays, bottlenecks, and waste, which could be applied to any methodology. I could use value stream management and map out a waterfall process if I chose to, or a V model for embedded systems development, or and in the embedded systems place, I have a video on YouTube that I did with the IBM ELM products, linking those two together, which was around embedded development. Basically, it was for car, but I could apply that same example to electronics development. It's about understanding the work. There's going to be requirements in electronics development. There's going to be a build, something that you're going to burn to a EEPROM, or you're going to embed in a device. The automated delivery side of the equation, well, you're probably not, unless you're delivering some update to some emulators, but for the physical device, you're not going to have a deployment automation solution there. It's going to be, you're going to plug a chip in or do some firmware update. But I can still track that work item from idea into production. So yes, it applies to both, your traditional DevOpsy kind of thing, or your embedded systems development activities. And we're
Okay.
at
Thank you, Al, for answering that. Last question for today, and rest all the questions. So we've got a lot of questions, Al and Derek. So we'll make sure that we get it answered post the webinar as well. As respecting everyone's time, we would just take the last question for today is, Is Urban Code Velocity a complete deployment automation tool?
It is a value stream management platform that integrates into a variety of other tools. If I go back to this slide right here, it sits across the top, connecting to things like a Jira instance, like a Git environment for, my version control, like Jenkins, like the rational test products for deployment. Urban Code Deploy would be the deployment automation mechanism, but maybe use Jenkins. To Derek's earlier point, right? We see a lot of different solutions integrated together to create that pipeline. Integrated together is the key word. They have their own sets of data. What Velocity is doing is connecting to all those integrated products and giving you a single control plane to have a holistic view across that pipeline. So does DevOps Velocity or Urban Code Deploy or Urban Code Velocity do deployment automation? No, it doesn't. It integrates to the tool of your choice, and hopefully that's Deploy.
Great. Great. Thank you.
I'll make one last comment on that as well. Is it's also worth noting that Urban Code Velocity is part of the IBM DevOps for IBM Cloud Paks offering as well. We can supply some further information to that question as a post activity.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Al, and thank you, Derek, for answering those questions and for the great presentation. It was a pleasure to have you with us. So this concludes our today's webinar. Thank you all for attending. We hope you had enjoyed this session, and rest assured, all the attendees, all the questions typed in here will be answered offline as well by us and the industry experts from Datamato and IBM. Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you,
Thank you,
Datamato,
everyone.
for this opportunity.
Thank you, Al.
No, thanks, Derek. It's a pleasure again.